She pushed her cleaning cart down the corridors of Fort Liberty like she had for 20 years. Grey hair escaping from beneath a faded baseball cap, worn uniform bearing coffee stains, moving slowly with the careful steps of someone who had learned to be invisible. The officers barely glanced her way as she emptied trash bins and mopped floors. To them, she was just another piece of the background, as unremarkable as the fluorescent lights overhead. Senior Lieutenant Colonel Harrison strode through the corridors of Fort Liberty, his polished boots echoing against the tile floors. As he rounded the corner near the communications wing, he nearly collided with an elderly woman pushing a cleaning cart loaded with supplies. "Watch where you're going," he snapped, not bothering to look at her face. The woman stepped aside silently, her weathered hands gripping the cart's handle. Her name tag read Elena in faded letters, and coffee stains marked her grey uniform. Captain Morrison, walking alongside Harrison, chuckled. 20 years she's been pushing that cart around here. You'd think she'd have learned to stay out of the way by now. Elena continued down the hallway, her movements deliberate but unhurried. She had perfected the art of invisibility over 2 decades, becoming part of the institutional furniture that nobody noticed or questioned. In the officers' mess, the conversation continued over coffee. "I swear that janitor woman appears in every corner of this base," Lieutenant Davis commented, stirring sugar into his cup. "It's like she knows this place better than we do." "Probably does," Harrison replied with a dismissive laugh. "She's been here longer than half the command staff." What they didn't notice was Elena herself, quietly refilling the coffee station just 3 feet away. Her movements were methodical as she replaced filters and restocked supplies, but her eyes tracked every conversation, every document left carelessly on tables, every face that passed through the room. The alarm pierced through the morning routine like a knife through silk. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors in an ominous glow as the base-wide announcement echoed through the speakers. Code red, all personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. In the chaos that followed, while officers ran toward their positions, Elena calmly pushed her cleaning cart toward a supply closet. What happened next would shatter everything they thought they knew about the invisible woman they had dismissed for 20 years. The alarm pierced through the morning routine like a knife through silk. Red emergency lights bathed the corridors in an ominous glow as the base-wide announcement echoed through the speakers. Code red. All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, code red. Chaos erupted instantly. Officers ran toward their assigned positions while support staff sought shelter. In the confusion, Elena calmly pushed her cart to the nearest supply closet and locked the door behind her. Colonel Harrison burst into the command center, his face flushed from running. "What's our status?" he demanded. "Sir, we have a level 5 security breach," reported Major Stevens, his voice tight with stress. "Someone's accessed our classified communication networks. We need immediate authorization from Phantom Command." "Phantom Command?" Harrison's brow furrowed. "I don't have those clearance codes." The room fell silent, except for the hum of computer terminals and the distant wail of alarms. Every officer present understood the implication. Fort Liberty was home to some of the military's most sensitive operations, but certain protocols existed beyond their authorization levels. "Sir," Communications Officer Kelly spoke up from her station, "we're receiving an encrypted transmission on a secured channel. The caller is requesting to speak with the base emergency coordinator." Harrison grabbed the secure phone. "This is Lieutenant Colonel Harrison, Fort Liberty Command." The voice on the other end was crisp, authoritative, and unmistakably familiar, though he couldn't place it. "Colonel, this is Phantom 1. I need a direct line to your base emergency coordinator immediately." "Sir, I am the senior officer on duty. I can handle." "Colonel," the voice interrupted, "you are not cleared for this conversation. Locate your emergency coordinator and patch me through. You have 60 seconds. Harrison's hand trembled slightly as he lowered the phone. In 30 years of military service, he had never encountered authority that superseded his own so completely. "Kelly, run a base-wide search for our emergency coordinator. Cross-reference with current personnel files." Communications Officer Kelly's fingers flew across her keyboard, searching through digital records while the seconds ticked away. The tension in the room was palpable as every officer waited for answers that seemed increasingly elusive. "Sir," Kelly reported, her voice uncertain, "according to our files, the emergency coordinator position has been vacant for 3 years." "That's impossible," Harrison snapped. "Every military installation requires an active emergency coordinator. Check again." As Kelly frantically searched through backup files, the supply closet door Elena had disappeared into opened with a soft click. She emerged transformed. Gone was the stooped posture and hesitant movements. Her grey hair was now pulled back in a regulation military bun, and she wore a crisp uniform that had been hidden beneath her janitor's coveralls. Elena walked purposefully toward the command center, her bearing now unmistakably military. The officers she passed did double takes, their minds struggling to reconcile the woman they had dismissed with the authoritative figure now striding through their corridors. She entered the command center without knocking, and every conversation stopped mid-sentence. The transformation was so complete that several officers failed to recognize her immediately. "I'll take that call now, Colonel," she said, extending a hand for the secure phone. Harrison stared at her, his mouth opening and closing without sound. "You're the janitor." "I'm the emergency coordinator," Elena corrected, taking the phone from his limp grasp. She spoke into it with calm authority. "Phantom 1, this is Coordinator Santos, Authentication Sierra Echo 77 Alpha." The response was immediate. "Authentication confirmed. Coordinator Santos, we have a Priority Alpha situation. Initiate Lockdown Protocol 7. Elena moved to the main terminal, her fingers dancing across the keyboard with practiced precision. Security screens flickered to life, showing camera feeds from every corner of the base. Her access level was clearly beyond anything the other officers had ever seen. "Protocol 7 initiated," she confirmed. "Base is sealed, all personnel accounted for except the 3 intruders in Building C7. Colonel Harrison found his voice. "Intruders? What intruders?" Elena glanced at him with eyes that held depths of experience he was only now beginning to recognize. "The ones who've been using your compromised network access to steal classified information for the past 6 months, Colonel." She turned back to the terminal, pulling up files that made several officers gasp in recognition. Financial records, personnel files, operational plans, all marked with access timestamps that corresponded to Elena's cleaning schedule. "You see, gentlemen," Elena continued, her voice carrying quiet authority, "a janitor has access to every room, every wastebasket, every secure conversation held in empty hallways. For 20 years, I've been the one person on this base that everyone ignored completely." Major Stevens stepped forward, his face pale. "Ma'am, I don't understand. Are you military intelligence?" Elena reached into a uniform jacket and withdrew a small leather case. When she opened it, the room fell completely silent. Inside was the Presidential Medal of Freedom, one of the nation's highest civilian honors, alongside credentials identifying her as a deep-cover operative for a program so classified that its name was redacted even on her identification. "I'm what the intelligence community calls a ghost asset," she explained. "Someone placed in deep cover for extended periods to monitor and protect classified installations. My cleaning route gave me access to intelligence that formal surveillance could never gather." She pressed several more keys, and the main screen displayed a comprehensive map of the infiltration. 3 red dots moved through Building C7, their progress tracked in real time. The individuals currently in custody believed they had compromised Fort Liberty's security through digital means. What they didn't realize was that every keystroke, every document photographed, every conversation recorded was being monitored by someone they never noticed. Colonel Harrison slumped into a chair, the weight of 20 years of dismissive behavior crushing down on him. "All this time, you were protecting us." "Protecting the mission, Colonel. Personal feelings never entered into it." Elena coordinated with the response team through her earpiece, directing the apprehension of the infiltrators with the precision of someone who had done this many times before. As reports came in confirming the successful operation, she began the process of standing down from emergency protocols. "Team Alpha, Suspect 1 is secured in the server room. He was attempting to download classified missile defense protocols," came the crackling report through her earpiece. Copy that, Alpha. What about the other two? Elena responded, her fingers still flying across the keyboard as she monitored multiple security feeds simultaneously. Team Bravo has suspect 2 in custody. Female, approximately 35, found with sophisticated recording equipment hidden in what appeared to be maintenance supplies. Colonel Harrison leaned forward, his earlier embarrassment now replaced by professional curiosity. Ma'am, how long have you known about this infiltration? Elena pulled up a timeline on the main screen, showing a complex web of data points spanning 6 months. The first anomaly appeared in March when someone began accessing files during off hours. The pattern was subtle, never more than a few minutes at a time, always during periods when official personnel were off duty. She pointed to a series of red markers on the timeline. But they made a crucial mistake. They assumed that because the base was empty at night, no one was watching. They didn't account for the night shift janitor who noticed unfamiliar faces in restricted areas. Lieutenant Davis, who had earlier joked about Elena's omnipresence, now understood the implications. You've been tracking them this entire time. Not just tracking, Elena corrected, feeding them false information to map their network and identify their handlers. She switched to another screen showing communication intercepts. For the past month, they've been stealing carefully crafted misinformation designed to expose their entire operation. The secure phone buzzed again. Coordinator Santos, came the voice through the secure line. Outstanding work as always. What's your status for continued operations? Elena looked around the room at the officers who now stared at her with a mixture of awe and embarrassment. I believe my cover may be compromised, Phantom 1. Requesting reassignment. Understood. Transport will arrive in 40 minutes for extraction. Major Stevens stepped forward, his face still pale from the revelations. Ma'am, I need to ask, how many other installations have operatives like you? Elena's expression became carefully neutral. Major, that's classified information, but I can tell you that every critical military installation has layers of protection that most personnel never see. She began gathering specific items from around the command center, items that the officers now realized had been strategically placed over the years. A small plant from the windowsill contained a microtransmitter. The coffee maker she had serviced daily housed a sophisticated recording device. Even the motivational poster on the wall concealed a high-resolution camera. My God, whispered Communications Officer Kelly, you've been running surveillance on all of us. Not surveillance, Elena corrected gently. Protection. Every conversation recorded, every document photographed, every digital transaction monitored, all of it filtered through algorithms designed to detect threats while protecting privacy. Your personal lives, your private conversations, your individual struggles. Those were never of interest to us. She disconnected the final piece of equipment, a device no larger than a coin that had been hidden inside the base's central air conditioning unit. We only flagged data that posed security risks. The love letters, Lieutenant Martinez writes to his wife, Captain Johnson's struggles with his teenager, Major Stevens' concerns about his mother's health, those remain private and always will. The weight of 20 years of invisible protection settled over the room like a blanket. These men and women had gone about their daily lives, argued about parking spaces, complained about cafeteria food, celebrated promotions and mourned losses, never knowing that someone was watching over them with the dedication of a guardian angel. Colonel Harrison found his voice first. The times you seemed to know things about base operations that you shouldn't have known. Every memo that ended up in a wastebasket, every casual conversation in an empty hallway, every supposedly private meeting in offices I cleaned at night, Elena confirmed. A janitor is invisible, Colonel. People say things in front of the cleaning staff that they would never say to their superior officers. She moved to her cleaning cart one final time, removing what appeared to be ordinary supplies. But as she worked, the officers could see that each item had been carefully modified. The spray bottles contained sophisticated chemical sensors. The vacuum cleaner housed advanced recording equipment. Even her mop bucket had a false bottom concealing encrypted communication devices. 20 years of gathering intelligence, she continued, and not once did any of you question why the same cleaning woman had access to every secure area on base, why she knew everyone's schedules, everyone's habits, everyone's secrets. As Elena prepared to leave Fort Liberty for the last time, Colonel Harrison approached her with visible difficulty. "Ma'am, I owe you an apology, we all do." Elena's expression softened slightly. "Colonel, you acted exactly as you should have. If you had treated a janitor with the same respect as a fellow officer, it would have compromised the entire operation." She reached into her cleaning cart and withdrew a small wooden box. Inside, cushioned in velvet, lay a second medal, the Intelligence Star, awarded for exceptional service in intelligence operations. Beside it was a faded photograph showing a much younger Elena in military dress uniform, standing beside what was clearly a previous version of herself in janitor's clothes. "This is my third deep cover assignment," she revealed. "The first was a cafeteria worker at a nuclear facility. The second was a librarian at a defense contractor. Each time the same principle applied. Become so ordinary, so forgettable, that no one questions your presence anywhere." She gathered the few personal items that had maintained her cover. A thermos that actually contained emergency medical supplies, a worn paperback novel with hollowed-out pages holding emergency cash and false identification, a small framed photo of a family that didn't exist but had provided her with a believable personal history. "Will we be told who replaces you?" Major Stevens asked. Elena smiled for the first time since revealing her identity. "Major, if I told you that, it would defeat the entire purpose." She paused at her cleaning cart, running her hand along its worn handle. "This cart has travelled over 12,000 miles through these corridors. I've emptied approximately 2.5 million waste baskets, cleaned 847,000 square feet of flooring, and serviced 15,000 coffee makers. I've been present for 3,200 classified briefings, 890 emergency drills, and 47 actual security incidents." The statistics hung in the air, a testament to 2 decades of unwavering vigilance disguised as menial labour. As she walked toward the exit, every officer in the command centre stood at attention. It was a gesture of respect 20 years overdue, but Elena accepted it with grace. At the doorway she paused and turned back. "Gentlemen, remember this. The most important people in your organisation are often the ones you notice least. Pay attention to the invisible ones. They're usually the ones keeping you safe." The helicopter arrived exactly 40 minutes later, landing briefly on the base's emergency pad. Elena boarded without ceremony, carrying only a single duffel bag containing her real belongings. As the aircraft lifted off, she looked down at Fort Liberty one last time. Below, the base continued its operations, unaware that their guardian of 20 years had just departed. Somewhere in those buildings, another invisible protector was likely already in place, beginning their own long watch. Colonel Harrison stood at his office window, watching the helicopter disappear into the distance. On his desk lay a single file folder that Elena had left behind, a complete security assessment of Fort Liberty, identifying 17 different vulnerabilities that standard inspections had missed. The cover page bore a simple note in her precise handwriting: "Thank you for 20 years of excellent cover. The next coordinator will contact you if needed. You'll never see it coming." Inside the folder were detailed recommendations for improving base security, but also something unexpected: personal notes about each officer under his command. Not surveillance reports, but observations about their dedication, their potential, their hidden strengths. Elena had been watching over more than just base security. She had been watching over the people who served there. Harrison smiled despite himself, finally understanding that the best protection often came from the most unexpected sources. In the military's endless quest for security, they had forgotten that sometimes the most powerful weapons were the ones that looked like cleaning supplies. From that day forward, every officer at Fort Liberty found themselves paying attention to the support staff in ways they never had before. The maintenance workers, the kitchen staff, the administrative assistants, any one of them could be the next guardian angel they'd never see coming. Because sometimes the people protecting you are the ones you've been trained not to notice. And that invisibility isn't weakness. It's the ultimate strength.